to learn, no one can stop you. So, for starting a new chapter of learning, I, Swati, being your moderator for today's event, want to extend a warm greeting and good morning to everyone present here. On behalf of whole SEMS family, I welcome you all for today's international webinar on developing a new business with a global approach to business. Before we proceed, let me take a brief moment for the introduction of my organization. SEMS Welfare Foundation is a not-for-profit organization which works in the areas of education, liability, research, health, and many more. Now, a very warm welcome to our honorable speaker, Dr. Area Chair in the Department of Operations and Supply Chain Management at Jindal Global Business School, OP Jindal Global University, and Institute of Eminence. He also holds a visiting researcher position at the department and Graduate Institute of Business Administration, College of Management, Chaoyang University of Technology, Taiwan. He possesses a convincing academic background with the Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics, followed by a Master's in Business Administration with a dual specialization in Operations and Human Resource Management, UGC NET Fellow for Assistant Professorship and a Doctorate PhD in Supply Chain and Technology Management from the Department of Industrial and Management Engineering, IIT. Sir has showcased 20 research articles at several national and international conferences. Also, he is an author of
Swati, I guess I need to start because somewhere we lost you in between. You are not audible, Swati.
now I am audible.
Yeah, now you are audible. So somewhere we lost in between.
I think it's
Okay.
not.
No worry, no worry. So shall I start?
Yes, sir. Now over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Swati, for comprehensively giving the introduction about my background and my interest area. Good morning, everyone. My name is Vinayak. I usually work in the area of digital ventures and the operations management. Currently, I'm working on how the new ventures, they are actually developing the business by following the global approaches. Why I found this particular topic or today's topic very relevant in the current schema of time, as majority of the startups happening, or you can say nurturing in India, whether they are not doing that well or they are facing the failures. So what I feel is like if they are failing, there must be some reason. And if they are doing good or comparatively good, there also be some kind of a reason. And then we need to compare the reasons, or you can say the attributes of both the successful ventures and the failed ventures with the international ventures, those who are doing good or significantly good. So the today's topic, I'm trying to unwrap few of the approaches, or you can say that the perspective, what the global ventures are actually following by keeping in mind the long-term sustainability. I want this particular session to be interactive, and please feel free to post your queries and questions in between also. So let me just start with the presentation. Just a second. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Miss Swati?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So as the topic itself says, itself talk about like what are the role of the global approaches when we are developing the new ventures. So before even commenting on, let's say, the global approach, we need to understand that the traditional approach, or how even in the current time, the ventures, those who got birth in Indian context or Indian ecosystem, what they are actually following or what kind of a approach they are pursuing might be one of the reasons that they are failing in a very short span of time in their operations. So if we start, like, every business or every founder, they are looking for the requirements, obviously the client's requirement or the market requirement, why any particular product service is actually required by the audience. And that is completely fine, because when you are looking for developing a business, you are looking for a solution, right? Solution for the audience, solution from for the customers. And finding or tapping a requirement is the first step for every business. So that is the traditional approach, and I'll definitely discuss one by one approaches, right? After comparing with the global approach, or you can say the contemporary approaches. So first, let's see that what kind of approaches businesses are actually doing in the current time, although they become so traditional in nature. So first is they are only looking for the requirement. Again, I'm consciously using this word, only looking for the requirement. Understanding the domestic market, majority, I don't know whether you guys follow the pitches, like what kind of a pitches we are actually seeing, right? Majority of the founders or co-founders or even the business developers, they are focusing on the domestic market.
Because of many reasons, because the products and
Service, they don't have that kind of a brand equity, they don't have that kind of a visibility, plus it is not very easy to penetrate to the uncharted territory. That is completely fine, but the point is, if we are only focusing on the domestic market, how can a product or a service will actually imbibe the global approach? And that is one thing which we need to discuss. Understanding the demand and supply. Demand and supply are very basic parameters whenever market started growing, or if any deficiency, to understand the deficiency, or to actually make yourself confident that yes, because there is a deficiency, we need a solution, and that solution can be delivered through new ventures. But demand and supply, or understanding a demand and supply only, is a very traditional approach. Why? Because here we are only depending on the demand which is already there in the market. We are not depending on the demand a business or a service can actually create in the market. I will take the examples like how the global businesses, they have actually created the demand rather than following the ongoing demand in the market. The next traditional approach, Indian ventures, they are following is like they are actually spending a significant amount of their energy, time, and resources to understand the competitions. You know, uh, in one of the surveys or in many studies, it was found that
almost 60 to 70%.
percent startups, they fail to place themselves in a right quadrant. And when I'm saying right quadrant, that means they don't know actually like where they are actually fitting, whether they are fitting in a right industry, whether they are fitting in a right product, whether they are fitting in a right service, or whether they are fitting in a right process. Because that's the most challenging part to define. And that has to be defined in the very beginning of the process. Otherwise,
whatever you will do,
you're not going to get the actual leverage of whatever energy, resources, maybe competency you are putting into that particular venture. So that's the point. Like competition, you can't actually understand who is your direct or indirect competitor if you don't know that whether you are in a right industry or a right quadrant or not. And that's a prominent, you can say, factor of failing the new businesses in India. Then there is a dilemma in everyone's mind, like whether to go for a service or to go for a product. So service, again, easy to develop. The cost of development is significantly very low if you go for a manufacturing. But then people are not understanding, like they are still focusing on something which don't have or which is having a very short span of lifetime.
we are talking
We are talking
about
about products, we are talking about services. Again, if we are not putting the global approach, the products will not going to last for long time. Definitely it will get obsolete. When it comes to services, obviously the services are changing with a very exponential pace. Every 3 months a new service is there in the market, and again, I'm taking 3 months, it's much lesser than 3 months. So again, product, service, which product, which service, whether to go for a product or to go for a service, it is something which is very skeptical in nature. And again, no one can actually define it. It will automatically get defined when you tap the right quadrant where you want to place yourself as a solution driver, because business is something we expect to deliver the solutions. Then the last thing, or the traditional approach, is like always to go for a finished product or the services. Okay, this is the product. Okay, let's take an example of a mobile phone. So the mobile phone, Samsung is actually rolling out in the market, Apple is rolling out in the market, or any of the companies. So the final product or the final service is the solution every company wants to deliver. And that's where they are failing. Because in the final product, there is a very high risk of failure. In a final product, the brand equity is with your company. When there is a final product or a service, you don't get that kind of avenue to make the modifications according, or to make the modification by meeting the pace of the modification required in the market. So this is something which is very important to understand, okay, where we are actually doing the mistakes. And if we understand, I don't means, again, I'm not saying that, oh, in one go, new business developers, they can actually counter all these approaches in one go, but at least they can take up one by one, but in the initial phases of their ventures. Now we have discussed the traditional approach. Let me take you through the modern or the global approaches
the developing country, or you can say
the most emerging countries they are following. I happen to be in Taiwan, Japan, sometimes in China, also in Netherlands, Finland. How they are doing it? Again, they are very small countries. Again, China, I'm not considering China as a small, but are there the other Asian countries, right? Also Thailand, right?
but how they're doing
It.
what is what is that
One factor that makes them more sustainable in nature. If we are talking about Japanese companies, Japan is very small, right? But then they are the king in automobile sector, right?
the huge
Share of Suzuki in India, right?
how they're doing it,
And they're doing it from a pretty long time, and it's being almost 5 decades for Suzuki in India. And Maruti Suzuki is the most selling automobile vehicle in India, and not in India. Again, if you see the other territories also. Similarly with Toyota, right? How they have done it, very small country. Similarly, if you take an example of Asus,
How Asus is doing
this Taiwan is actually manufacturing the Asus, and Asus is world leader company in the personal computing nowadays, right? Their products are phenomenally good. Taiwan is also manufacturing the Snapdragon processor, which is there in our smartphones. So those who are using the Android phones, they have this Snapdragon processor chipset, right? Very small country, how they are doing it. Similarly, if you talk about
let's say, shoes. Vietnam. Vietnam is manufacturing the
shoes, again, Bangladesh is also sharing a good amount of manufacturing when it comes to shoes and the retail, right? Zara, I don't know whether you heard about Zara or not. IKEA,
a Sweden brand.
right? A Sweden company, how they're doing it. So there must be something which is unique in nature. There must be something which is modern in nature. There must be something which is right in nature. And that's why all these companies or these countries, they're actually doing pretty well in a more sustainable way. It's not a one day profit. It's not something like, okay, over the night they became a sensation and they started booking the profits. No, whatever companies I have taken, they are actually making a sustainable profits. Again, there is,
You can say, amplification.
and when it comes to profit, losses, demand, but still they are there in the market.
Sometimes they lead.
The market, sometimes they drive the market, sometimes they follow the market, but they are there in the market. And all these businesses, they started with a very small amount of, you can say, resources,
But the only
difference they have followed is from the beginning only, they have followed the global approach. Why? Because if you're only focusing on the domestic market or the domestic needs, you can't create economies of scale for your business or a product. And that's pretty sure. So let me take you to the contemporary approaches companies are actually following. So they are not depending on the requirements. Because if you see in the traditional approach, the majority of the energy ventures are actually putting into understanding the requirement. Here, the companies, they are creating the requirement. I have a very good example here if you talk about. So pre 2012, right? Or I'll bifurcate this example into three phases. So pre 2007, there was a brand called Nokia who was a world leader, right? Who was a world leader and who used to have majority of the market share when it comes to
mobile, or you can say
smart connectivity, right?
the cellular connectivity.
Activity. What happens after 2007? So there was a disruptor called Apple. Apple came into a market and they launched their first iPhone. Technology wise, connectivity wise, functionality wise, they are much more superior than the Nokia. Although Nokia at that point of time was still a market leader. But then gradually they started losing
Their market share. Right? So let's suppose uh,
the end of 90s, right? That is 98, 99. Nokia has started growing till 2007, 2008, right? And near means after 2003, there was a player, LG, Samsung, other players are also there in the market, those who are competing with Nokia. But the major disruptor or the competitor emerged at that particular time was the iPhone, Apple. Then Apple has taken a domination in that particular segment and they started flourishing like anything. Everyone wants Apple, Apple, Apple. I still recall my days like that time we were very, very crazy about Apple 4, iPhone 4, right? Then a company, a small startup, and they are the graduate startup.
yeah, Swati, you have something to say?
So actually your PPT is not visible clearly.
Clearly,
I don't understand this. I've already shared it.
it.
Sir, it's only saying and supply word.
Now?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Swati, for pointing it out.
Okay. So the what I say.
Like we are talking about the iPhones, right? 2007, they have launched their first iPhone. They started their business. Till 2012, there was no competition in the market from the Android or from the other players, those who can actually consider to be the competitor of iPhone, not in the domestic market, but in the international market. Then a startup, right? So HTM Limited, right? And it was a startup, right? It was a startup done by college graduates. They have actually started a company, right? Again, they come up with the OnePlus, and everyone knows now OnePlus is a known brand, not here, but in the Asian market, in the US market also, and now they have penetrated to the Australian continents too. So OnePlus, what they have observed is like, okay, Samsung is doing pretty well in the Android market. That time LG was also there. Again, the domestic players are also there. But then that particular Android phone is not giving that premium factor what Apple was claiming. Apple never sells their product based on the specification. They never sell their product on the based on the specification. But if you see the other brand, Samsung, they are selling that, okay, we have this much of hard disk or we have that features in our product. Apple never marketized their features. They started by giving a better quality camera, but they always bet on the experience a user will get after using the phone or you after using that particular device. And more than the experience, it's a pride of a ownership, right? It's a pride of a ownership of a phone, or you can say elegant phone, right? So customers are not actually looking for having an instrument which will give you a functionality, and that functionality you required is to call someone, but to give you an accessory which you can actually flaunt in a market that can actually place you to a sophisticated strata in the society. So you need to understand the company is not selling a product. A company is not selling a particular service, but company is actually selling the status to the customers. And that particular thing has actually grabbed, or you can say pointed by the OnePlus. And then they understand, okay, if we go by the specifications, the functions, we will also put ourselves into the quadrant of where the Samsung, LG, and other Nokia was that time also they were also that present because now Microsoft have taken that, and so they were present in there. Lumia phones were there at that time. Then HTC, BlackBerry, they were also there, but they were in the other segments, but they were still there in the market. So they understood this particular global approach that, oh, people are not buying mobile phone just because they want an instrument, but people are buying mobile phone because they want a status. Status of owning a premium instrument. So what they did is they started selling their mobile phone with an approach that we are manufacturing a limited pieces only. And you will only own the mobile phone when you will get an invite from a company. So it's more like you are getting an invitation to a prestigious occasion, any ceremony or anything. Right? So somewhere they are selling you the red carpet through the invite. They are not selling the instrument. They are selling you the red carpet. Right? And how they have created this red carpet? They have created this red carpet by manufacturing only 10,000 mobile phone for the global market. Okay. Specification, everything, they were working very fine, but again, they were not something which is very, very significantly different as compared to the Samsung and other competitors there. But what approach they have actually adopted is different, and somewhere seminal to the Apple. And Apple have already cracked that particular thing. And then they rolled out the product on the base of the invites. Right? Invite helped them to place as a premium brand in the market. Not here, but
outside India also. Not many people know that
that Vivo, Oppo, and OnePlus, they are under the one brand,
right. They are under the
one umbrella brand. Right? They are the again, it's a brand under one company, right? But they have marketized the OnePlus brand as the premium brand. Vivo, Oppo, they never got their share of premiumness, but then they have placed OnePlus as a premium brand, and they started with a basic price of 22,000 for OnePlus, and they have actually launched it as a premium flagship scaler phone. And then they started, means again, people became very crazy for that. And nowadays in India,
the biggest competitor
for
Apple when it comes to price, when it comes to specification, when it comes to premium is again OnePlus and Samsung. Samsung also
changed their strategy by following the OnePlus. But OnePlus has actually understood this, that the global market is
looking for a
instrument which can place them to a different strata, or you can say to the different or the next level of superiority.
so that's the global approach.
The problem here, or the problem with the ongoing ventures or the new ventures here, is they are only looking for the specification. Okay, we have the best specification. So I've seen so many pitches in past 3 years, and everyone is claiming that, oh, we will have 16 GB of RAM in our smartphone, we'll have the best camera, we will have the best battery in the smartphones. And my only question here is, why can't Apple do that? They have all sort of resources, they have all sort of capacity. Why Apple is not doing that?
Right. Even again,
Why Samsung is not doing that? Best camera, best, means again, how difficult it is for them to increase the RAM like anything, how difficult it is for them to increase the battery life as anything, how difficult it is for them to increase the capacity of a phone like anything, keeping in mind that they are having the advantage over the prices and they can increase the price. But they are not doing it, and they are not doing it very consciously. You need to understand that they have understood the line of action they have to follow, rather than wasting their energy, time, and resources to something which is not required.
so people are still buying,
Mobile phone,
but the purpose is different. It's not at all.
all the convenience they are getting, it's about what kind of the accessories they are actually owning. And that's why, if you see the buying pattern of the consumers, they are changing their gadgets very frequently. Right?
In every
15
15
days, we have a new smartphone in the market. In every 10 days, we have a new software in the market. In every 5 days, we have a new update in the market.
why this is happening? There must be some reason, and those
Companies who are actually tapping these, they are becoming sustainable with time.
the next thing
Is
is
understanding the scalability. When we are talking about the scalability, whenever you are opening a venture or thinking about product or services,
it shouldn't be constrained.
and for one functionality, or it shouldn't be constrained for a particular region, for particular cultural, you can say, flow, or anything.
Means again, if you're
Doing it, you are creating a barrier for your own product or for your own business.
so let me take you.
So that what we do, what we mean by scalability. Scalability is something that from one product or from one service,
You can actually
we create the multiple avenues to sell your product, maybe as a finished product or maybe as an unfinished product. That depends on the requirement, but then you can find an avenue to sell that particular product at multiple levels.
now take
Very good example for this,
there is a company
company called
Gorilla. Yeah, like there's a company
who makes the glasses. So on our smartphone, we all have toughened glasses, right? And
They claim that it is
very toughened, right? So the glass manufacturing company, they started by making the mirrors and then they jump off to the glasses, right? They were knew that
the next age of
gadgets will be the touch screens,
and touchscreen is
something which is composed of you can say a thin
layer of PCB, right? Sold with
a glass, right? So that glass can actually sense the temperature of our body, and that temperature will actually make understand the whatever the processor is there in the gadget or something, the intensity through which we are pressing the particular module.
they knew this. They have cracked it. What they did though,
Yes, they said, okay, we will make the glass only. Again, we're not going to make anything.
but glasses in
All sizes. But then there was a difficulty, there was a challenge, there was an operational challenge of making the glasses of all sizes. So they started standardizing the sizes. So
for let's suppose the small glass will
be
be
available for 5 inch, 6 inch, 7 inches. That is fine. The smaller one is for 1 inch, 2 inch, and the larger one you can have it for 12 inch, 15 inch. The laptop, the usual laptops we have. But they have fixed the sizes. They have fixed the sizes, and according to their cost of production, they have motivated the companies to create their products according to that sizes. I don't know whether you have followed this or not, but when
the Apple launched their
MacBooks
it used to come
for 13.3 inches and 15 inch, right? It's not even 15, 14.9 inches. But now, whatever their MacBooks, they are of 14 inches and 16 inches. And again, the other companies also they are manufacturing for 13.9 inches and 15.8 inches. So everyone is actually now moved to 14 and 16 inch. So why they did this? Means again, what is the difference?
15 and 15 point.
0.8. Why this 0.8 needs to increase? It's because the company have actually said that, or they have actually put this particular thing that we will have these many limited sizes.
If you want our
Glass, you have to manufacture your product accordingly so that our glass can fit your product. Right? It's not that whatever you are making, we will prepare glass for it. It is like what glass size we have, you will prepare product for that.
so the difference
Approach.
they have created a
Scalability. So the same glass can be used for your mobile phone. The same glass can be used for your laptops. The same glass can be used for your iPad. The same glass can be used for watch. The same glass can be used for your infotainment system in your car. The same glass can be used for anything. Refrigerators, like nowadays we have smart refrigerators. The same glass can be used for any typical displays we have on our AC, we have on our, let's suppose, coolers, we have on other devices. One simple product, a glass with a standard sizes,
is actually used by multiple
companies,
millions of
companies for trillions of product,
companies with having the
same functionality,
just a glass, but they have created.
the scalability or economies of scale for that.
So that is the
Global approach we need to understand. So in India, whatever ventures they are coming up, they are only focusing on the short term functionality of their product or a service. Okay, if we will roll out this particular solution, we can actually solve this problem. But that is a very, very, very
short-term kind of a solution. And again, you are
depending on the requirement.
you have not created
The requirement. Here, the company has created the requirement of a glass by the gadget manufacturing companies,
the same requirement as
created by Google.
because now majority
Majority of the smartphones they are using Androids. Okay, so that requirement has actually created by Google.
the third one is
Understand where you fit in demand and supply.
in the traditional
Approach. People are actually wasting their time by understanding what are the demand and supply and how it works, right? So the whole scheme of demand and supply, how it works, right? And again, I'm not saying that's a wrong approach.
The only thing is whether that approach
Approach is still that valuable and still that feasible in the current time is not, yes or not. That is somewhere the businesses are actually getting the edge.
nowadays companies they are looking at
Okay, if there is a demand, fine. If there's no demand, we will create the demand. But where we are actually fitting, where we are fitting on the demand side, where we are fitting on the supply side. Because when you are fitting on the supply side, that means you are already created or you have already created the demand. And that's why you are on the supply side, whether you have the competitors in that particular supply side or you have or not, that is something which defines by your competency, which defined by the, you can say, the size of the competition, right? But then if you are there on the supply side, that means you have already created a demand. If you are on the demand side, right, that means you still need to create the requirement or the demand. And how you will do it? There are so many other ways to do that. Like OnePlus has created the demand, Apple has created the demand. Nowadays, Ola has created a demand, right? No one has asked for the EV scooter from the Ola. They have created the demand, although it is not very good in quality, but still they have created a demand. They are also selling on the flash sale, first come. Right? It was it how they created. They created just by saying this or this creating this notion that okay, only first 10,000 people will get the EV scooter, the premium scooters. It's not like that. They have created the demand. So you need to understand where you are fitting yourself, whether you are on the demand side and or in the supply side. If you are on the demand side, then please work on the process of creating the demand first rather than creating a product or a service. Because then even if you have a product or a service, you're not going to place them successfully in the market because you are still focusing or dependent on the market requirements. You have not created your own requirement. Okay? And if you are a supply side, then you start working on your optimization process that, okay, we have already created the demand. Now, how to meet the demand? And if we are meeting the demand, whether that demand or the process from which we are meeting, whether that process is giving us economies of scale so that we can sustain that supply or not. Sustainability is the issue. And you will only get sustainability when you have economies of scale. And what we mean by economies of scale, when we actually leverage one particular product for multiple purposes, for multiple functionalities, for multiple attributes. Because if our product is satisfying that particular purpose, we have multiple streams of profit, and the venture will not going to rely on only one functionality, one requirement. Now the next one is understanding the competitors, right? When you are creating the requirement, you don't need to really worry about the competitors, because see, when it comes to ventures or when it comes to startup, we always consider this, that oh, we have some unique features and because of that only we lies into that particular category, that oh, we are the innovators, we have this competitive edge or something. If you are only thinking about the competition, that means you are missing that X factor from your approach, your venture. Because if you have the innovation, right, and trust me, that innovation can be driven by either product, by process, by design, or even by your scalability. I'll take one by one. Innovative products, we always say that okay, this is a very innovative product in the market, and this is something which we have not seen before. Maybe it's a new cover on the old product or the services. That depends. Again, that is completely fine. But then if you're really taking it out, what kind of a buzz it is creating in the market that makes the particular product to get sold? Every year, Apple introduced their new variants. So 11, 12, 13, 14. But they are not innovative in nature. Trust me. Apple has done innovation twice only. First, when they have introduced in 2007, they have introduced the capacitive touchscreen, right? Earlier, we used to have the resistive touchscreen. They have introduced the capacitive touchscreen. And out of that, they have created this like, okay, the experience is phenomenally good. And it was, trust me. And the next innovation they did is in the year 2017-18 when they removed the home button and they have introduced the Face ID. And the Face ID is some kind of a technology. The points on our faces, so they have identified millions of points on our faces, which can be used to strengthen the security of your device. Okay, similarly with thumbprint scanner, right? In-display thumbprint scanner, or you can say anything, but they are not using it. Apple never uses, they used the physical home button for thumbprint, but not never the, you can say, the on-screen display, what Vivo has introduced way back in 2017-18. Right. They have completely removed the home button. They have used the Face ID, and nowadays you can see Face ID is very common. So once you introduce a kind of a innovation in the market, and if it got well placed, then the other follower companies, they also started following this particular thing. Okay. So competition, if you're only following the competition, then it's very hard for you to place in the market with that unique factor, because there again you are depending on the requirement of the market, you are depending on the demand. You have not created the demand, right? So try to understand the thing that how you can create a competition through your design, very basic designs, right? I'll take an example of this organizer business. So nowadays, our cupboards, they want an organizer. Our car, they want an organizer. Our kitchen, they want an organizer. Any place you need an organizer, even to organize the cables, your charger of your phone, mobile, laptops, iPad, others, they all also need that clips and other organizer. Nowadays, we have organizer bags and everything. What is that? Do we require uh, NASA science for creating an idea of manufacturing an organizer? Organizer is very, very, very basic thing. But if you see the market, the international market of these kind of a product, it is very huge. And trust me, they are making more profit than any other gadget in the market, because you don't need after sales service for an organizer. You don't need you can say a very fancy or a very, very, very costly technology for manufacturing the organizer. You don't need to innovate that much or frequently innovate that much to sustain in the market. Obviously, organizers, they always play on their design, right? But their functionality is one, right? You have defined the functionality. Okay, it is an organizer. You require that to organize your stuff. But at the end of the day, it is a particular shape created by either by the plastic material, by silicon material, or any other material. But at the same time, it's a very simple thing, and it's very simple to manufacture it also. But people are not looking for it. The people are looking to go for a venture, those who can deal with high intensive technology, right? Or those who deal with something which is very innovative in nature. Again, there's nothing called innovation. Innovation is something where you are using the resources, clubbing the resources, creating something out of that resources, and placing that resources in such a manner that it drives a solution either for the existing problem or for the potential problem. Many times, companies, they started bringing the product according to the problem they will only create in the future. And let me take here another example or another very interesting example of AirPods. So I'm wearing one set of AirPods, and nowadays everyone is using the true wireless earbuds, right? It's nowadays it's very cheap, and every company actually rolling it out. But how it got started? Why we required that? Because from almost 30-40 years, that means 3-4 decades, we all were very used to wear the wired headsets, right? And we were very comfortable in them, right? So sometimes it's over the ear headphones, sometimes it's in ear headphone, but still they were wired. Why there was a need of a wireless, you can say, earbuds? So Apple has strategically thought in this process that okay, we will remove that 3.5 jack in next 5 years, right? And that will be the future strategy. But then parallelly, we will develop a product which people will require to connect with their phone if they really want to understand the voice of the phone. So first they developed it, right? They have not completely removed their 3.5 jack from their ongoing whatever that time models, right? But gradually they have removed it. That means they have only created the demand or the future demand. And to cater that future demand, they have already got the competitive edge by creating or launching a particular product which was not required at that particular time, but will be required in the future point of time. And then people started buying it. People started using it. People got a behavior to connect to your phone seamlessly. So by opening, so this particular, if I take out it from the cover, it's very easy to connect. Just open it up and your device is connected. So they have actually created, you can say, a habit, and they have charged for that habit for like anything. So they started with 7,000, 8,000, and now the Pro is costing around 25,000. They are not selling the product, they are selling the habit. You need to understand. And that's where more and more businesses are failing, because they always play on the product or the service. It's not product or the service. Have you ever imagined like why out of 100 companies, only few companies they place themselves into a successful venture? Sometimes even many of the products, they are not very superior in nature. Many times the product is not even carrying that quality as their competitors do, but still they manage to sustain for a long time. They manage to reap a good profitability. They manage to lead the whole sector. So currently also, if you can compare the Apple AirPod with the other AirPods in the market, let's suppose we have Samsung earbuds, we have other things like, I'm not saying Samsung is the superior, oh, sorry, Apple is the superior one. What I'm saying is they got mastery in selling the habit. And that's why their product is becoming more superior in nature. Here we are talking about only one thing, that okay, we will create a product that will disrupt the market. There's nothing called a product or a service which can disrupt the market. It is always a process which can actually help you to disrupt the market, which can actually help you to place in the market in such a manner that you can sustain. And sustainability is the major factor, because if you're not sustainable in nature, anyone can throw you out from the market, right? So that is the competition part. Then following the global approach. Why global approach? Because if you see the studies or if you see the pitches, the latest pitches also, everyone is only talking about solving the domestic problem. Fine. Again, domestic problem, they have a huge market, and if we place ourselves in such quadrant that we are following or we are solving the domestic problem, that is fine. But then how can you actually tap the international markets with your domestic approach?
How you understand that?
Okay, how what kind of a product Indonesians are required if you are only focusing on the product what Indians are required or requiring at that point of time. How you will understand that okay, what kind of a AirPod an Australian want according to their composition of their ear or the shape of their ear if you are only focusing on the Indian bodies. You need to understand that Apple or any of the established companies, those who are doing phenomenally good, they have actually understood or they have actually accommodated the global requirement or created the global requirement, and according to that they have actually developed the global approaches at what point of time where they want to hit the different territories, and that is very important. That is very important. So global approach is very important whenever you are talking about new ventures, because then you have that room to make the changes. Once you establish yourself in the market, you will be constrained with the image, with a brand image, with a company image, right? T series has failed in that. So T series, once they also launched the electronic company, right? They have rolled out their washing machine, TVs, other electronic gadgets, but they failed because they have established themselves as a music company or a recording label. They never established, they never thought in such a manner that okay, what if people will not going to consider as more than a recording label, and that's why they failed. And that's why many of the companies they failed. Videocon, again, why they failed, why they have failed to penetrate the international market, right? Why LG has successfully penetrated the Asian market,
LG is not an Indian company.
company, right? Why our smartphone companies they are actually facing a good struggle when it comes to uh, entering or creating a profit. Why? So again, if you talk about the Carbon or Micromax, right? These are the Indian startups, Indian brands. They failed to actually do this thing, particular things, right? And why the international companies they are coming to our market is because of the reason because they have followed the global approach. Then we talk about the global approach. We also need to understand what comes under the global approach. Every time we are talking about the product or the service, my only question is why every company, every venture wants to deal with a finished product or the finished company? Why can't we think about unfinished product or unfinished services? Why not? So, what is the benefit of that is like you can always argue. Just give me a second. I have an important call. Just give me a second. Yeah, sorry for that. So when it comes to the global approach, one thing we need to understand here is like never go for a finished product or a service. Why? Because when it comes to the finished products, you have always constrained the functionality of your product or your service. It's very important to understand that what if the requirement of that particular product or services started coming down? Do you have that bandwidth? Do you have that potential to launch or to cope up with the changing or the exponential changing requirement in the market? We talk about risk mitigation. We talk about something which we call it as like passing of the risk. And that will only happen when you are not on the front end. If you are only manufacturing the finished products or the services, your brand, your product will always be in the front end.
And then if you are not successfully,
fulfilling the responsibility, then obviously your brand will lose their credibility, your brand will lose the value, your product will lose their functionality, right? So why can't we think about the components, right? I'll take an example. Why we call China as a factory or a global factory? So China in their 60s, late 60s, they have understood, they have forecasted that in future the world will going to be driven by the gadgets, and gadget is something which requires energy. A gadget is something which will require the memory. Gadget is something which will definitely require a storage. So why can't we work on this particular thing rather than focusing ourselves into manufacturing car, rather than focusing manufacturing in a complete or finished product like laptop, washing machine, televisions. When Sony were busy in developing the design for the modern television, when the Suzuki were busy in designing the small cars, when the other companies like IBM or HP, they were busy in designing the personal computers, China and their ventures, they were busy in designing such a modular component, what we currently call it as a PCB or a chip, the green chip we found in every gadget. And they knew that every gadget will require this. So anyone around the globe who will going to manufacture a product will take this chip from us because we will master in this thing. And that has happened. The world is actually depending on China. You cannot say that, okay, boycott China, do you can't, you simply can't, because every gadget, every product in this world is actually requiring that chip, and the only country in the world who is manufacturing the chip at the cheapest price. Again, how they have achieved it at the cheapest price? Because they have got the benefit of economies of scale, because the same chip can be given to multiple companies. So mobile phone chip, again, the same size, the same specification, that can be actually given to multiple companies: Google, Apple, let's suppose Nokia, any brand, OnePlus, the same component. So they got the benefit of economies of scale because they have so many buyers across the globe. But they have cracked this particular code. They have cracked this particular code. And trust me, in my recent visit to Taiwan, I have seen that the more and more ventures, they are thinking about the components rather than the finished product or a service, because they knew that the finished product and service, they will have a very short span of time or life, because the expectation is changing like anything, right? The functionality is changing, or it's exponentially changing. So now more and more businesses are actually coming, those who are dealing with components, not the finished products. First reason why: because of the mitigation of the risk. Second, to give or provide the long term lifespan for your business. Component, your identity is not on stake, because if the mobile phone is not working precisely, then who will get the blame? That company. Okay. So Samsung is manufacturing the phone, OnePlus is manufacturing the phone, Apple is manufacturing the phone. If the phone is not working, who will get blamed? The company. No one is going to blame China, or no one will going to blame that particular venture who have provided the component, because no one knows that who has provided the component, right? But still, that particular company is actually manufacturing it, creating or booking the profits, because this is something which will be required for even for the next 10 years. Yes, the efficiency got changed, because earlier they used to use 8 nanometer chipset, now they are using 5 nanometer chipset. So that is something which is the incremental innovation. I'm not going to talk about the disruptive, radical, and incremental innovation, but just to give you an understanding, that is very incremental. That means they are making small changes over a period of time. The major fundamental of that component is same from past 5 decades. And it's a very simple thing. It's a very simple thing. But have you ever imagined why world is not able to create another country who can actually manufacture PCB? Similarly, the RAMs, or you can say the silicon chipset, right? Japan is manufactured. Why there is no another Japan or another country who can actually make this? Just a second. So these are the things, or these are the questions we as an entrepreneur, we as someone who really wants to develop the new things need to ask to ourselves, right? So the global approach is don't go for the final product or the service, always work on the components. And that is the unfinished part, right? The components, when we are talking about, that is the unfinished part. So I'll stop myself here, and I would like to understand the queries of the participants, like, so that we can bring this particular discussion to the next level. I have given the perspective, the approaches. Again, you can differ it. Whatever approaches, whatever perspective I have brought here is my from my experience I have got from multiple countries, and how they are doing their businesses, how they are actually making place or their footsteps in the market, the international market, and they are sustainable in nature. So I'll be more than happy to take the questions. Swati?
Yes, sir. I can see that many audience having questions in my chat box. I would like to take some of them.
Right.
The first question is from Anand Sain, that what are the company's most important value from your point of view?
Okay. So value, as I always said, that you can't find value in product or service. You can find value in their process of doing the business or placing themselves in the market. Okay. Let me take another example of Amazon, right? People are thinking that, okay, Amazon is actually booking their profit from selling the products online, or they have their AWS services, right? Or they have their warehouses nowadays also. They are not booking their profit from these particular things. What they are booking profit from is their other things, like when they are not reaping the profit from AWS from their own companies, but they are reaping the profit from by selling that particular things to their sub vendors. Okay, so let's suppose over this platform, let's suppose over Amazon, 8 million vendors, they are actually selling their products. So those 8 million vendors are actually using the AWS service on the subscription mode. And because of that only, that particular product called Amazon Web Cloud or AWS services, it actually getting the profit. So that one thing, so they are not selling it to individual consumers. What they are doing is, okay, you are our sellers, but you have to have our services to actually facilitate or selling the process. So they have mastered in the process, right? So the value lies in the process, not in the product or the service.
So another question is, what to do if we are not able to fit in the demand and supply? That is, what should we do to fit in the requirement of the environment?
Again, that's something which we have discussed, but again, I'll reflect on that. If you're only looking to fit in the environment, then trust me, you will never going to be a sustainable company, because in that case you can't cope up with the sudden change of the demand in the market. We are following the market because we only create the demand, right? We, and that demand is from our expectation, right? And you know the human brains, we all are humans, right? And our expectation is infinite, right? Today we want this color t-shirt, next day we don't like this color t-shirt, that color. No one knows why, but suddenly, right? And or we got influenced by some color, we got influenced by some design, we got influenced by many other factors. But then the demand is very, 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 very volatile in nature that no company, if they are following it, can actually cope up with that. So if you are only focusing on fitting yourself into the demand, then sorry, you are in a wrong sea. You will definitely lose your momentum and you will not going to swim into that.
Right? Now, the thing
Is how to understand whether you are in demand side or whether you are a supply side. That if, as I already mentioned, if you have actually finding that your particular product means, again, whether it's a component thing or the finished product, if you are finding that okay, you already have, let's suppose, competitors or you don't have competitors, right? Then you are on that supply side, right? But still you have not created any demand. But when you are finding that because you have that particular products, companies are coming to you, that means you have created a demand, right? The companies are not asking yourself or not asking you to design your product according to their interests. That means you have already created a demand, right? If companies are telling you that no, you have to create a product according to our specification or requirement, that means you have failed to create demand in the market and you are following it. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, sir. So our next question is, if China's innovative strategy is very good, so why do India do not accept and implement China's good industrial strategy?
Why? The first thing is we never considered economies of scale whenever we are planning our venture. That is the one thing, and that one missing thing. You need to understand that you can't be successful by imitating the things. In India, what is happening is majority of the ventures, they are imitating the processes, they are imitating this product services. You must have heard this term many times, Indianizing the thing, right? So you have seen some product outside India, and then you are copying that product, bringing that product to India with similar quality, with a cheap quality, right? And then you started fixing your price according to the market. Okay, if it's a premium brand or premium requirement, okay, this can be the things. But again, at the end of the day, you're only imitating the thing, right? And imitation can't give you the economies of scale. Imitation is not the innovation, you need to understand, right? And the third factor here is we always want our product, our service, our component to be technology driven, right? Nowadays we are talking about AI, like chat GPT is there now. l- I'm pretty sure that almost 100 companies in India, they want to build up this LLM, right? This is learning management software, right? Like ChatGPT in India. Why? Why we need to do that, right? When the original founder of ChatGPT, they happened to investigate or innovate in something, have they taken this approach to first copy the things from Google or copy the things from other a particular company in the market? They have created this, like, okay, we can have this kind of a service, let's invest into that, let's develop that, and then the world will follow. In India, we don't want to create something that world will follow. Tell me one particular company or a product through which you can say that, oh, no one in the world can make best or better product than this without India. No product. Whenever I'm means in India, Fortuner is something which drives many boys very crazy, right? Many people's very crazy. But it comes from very, very small country. It got manufactured in Thailand. So Thailand people, they proudly say this, like, oh, we manufacture the most, what do you say, the most lovable SUV in your country, right? But we can't say this. Even we take proud on Tata, but Tata is not the best vehicle in the world. Still the best vehicle is, the toughest vehicle is the Volvo. Still the most desired vehicle is the BMW or Bugatti, right? So we can't say this like, oh, we are the country who manufactures the best car. Even we don't say this that we are the country who manufactures the best button in the world. You know, there are only 4 companies in the world who manufacture this button. And they also come from a very, very, very small countries. So that's why the first thing we need to understand, stop imitation. If you're not stopping in imitation, you will never going to develop this kind of approach that, oh, we really want to do something which can have the economies of scale and which world will adopt rather than we are imitating from something. I guess that answers the question.
You are right. So our next question is from Saddam side. He asked that what do you see as the Indian companies' greater risk right now?
Indian companies greater risk. Okay. So their greater risk is the sustainability. As I always say that. The company, they started their functioning, the company, they started their innovation, the company started with some product or services, but they don't last for a significant amount of time because their fundamental starts with the imitation. Their fundamental starts with following the markets. Their fundamental starts with fitting into the market. So the main challenge here in front of the companies or the Indian companies, whether it's a venture, whether it's the ongoing companies, small companies, MSMEs, medium and small enterprises, is the sustainability. And why they are not sustainable? Because they don't have economies of scale. Why they don't have economies of scale? Because they are not following the global approaches. They don't have the global buyers. Obviously, they will fail.
So I have one question. As the entrepreneur, I want to become entrepreneur. If so, do I have to specialize knowledge in all fields?
No, never. Trust me, the companies, those who are doing pretty good, they only focus on their core competency. Let me tell you one thing here. If you are expanding yourself or you are stretching yourself in all the functional areas, you will never going to achieve the best or the rational energy out of that. Okay, Amazon, Flipkart, they all started. So both the founders of the companies, right? They coming from computer science background. They were very good in coding the things in such a manner that they can give you the better routing. And when we are talking about routing, that means scrolling of the content. Okay, the website we are thinking, or like, let's talk about this PPT and everything, right? So they are very good in that. So they focus themselves into that. They have created a platform where customers, all the sellers, all the vendors, they can feel much better than the physical process, right? Because in a physical process, you have to go, you have to waste time, you have to do the things. But here, what they said, did it, they created the ecosystem, the virtual platform, where people will feel more delighted while scrolling. They have not started packaging company. They have not started manufacturing company. They have not started something tracking company. They have not started something called, you can say, that tape manufacturing. We all see the Amazon tape, but they are not manufacturing the Amazon tape. They only focused on the routing part because they are good in that. They develop the dynamic pricing model. So whenever you see, according to the inventory, the prices will get fluctuated. That is all coding part, right? That is all coding. So they have mastered themselves, they have put themselves into that. And whatever the other non-core functions, packaging, sorting, you can warehousing, they all outsource it. They all outsource it. Because if they invest their time into all, we call it as a non-core activities, right? Then they will never going to master into their core activities, which is routing and which comes from coding. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. So Mackie asked, I want to start up a business, but
Hmm.
can I start up a business with a minimum funding? How can I do that?
Whenever you want to start a business, never go with your own funds, whether it's a minimum or maximum, but never go with your own funds, right? The best point is in India, we are talking about, and again, trust me, in India, we have a very limited kind of an exposure and the funds available for the startup. right? Because in India, if you really want to go for a startup or something, even though if the agencies, they are claiming that, oh, we have invested so much for creating the startup ecosystem, you are also constrained with the expectations also, right? In terms of the policies, in terms of the outcomes. But outside India, see, you need to understand India is a very potential market, it's a very big market, right? India is a very big market. Similarly, China is a very big market. Australia is a very big market. So companies outside the India, they are also looking for the partners. They are also looking for the companies who understand the Indian requirement, who can understand how to develop a process to create the requirement in India. So if you're partnering with this particular thing, and that's why if you see, we have different startup pitches in different parts of the world or the globe. There people are actually inviting people from India, from China, from other good economies to showcase the process, how they can create the demand for the product, for the component. And that's where you can place yourself as an entrepreneur. So I have been into these kind of a programs. In 2018, I have pitched my own idea. The idea wants a heavy investment. They said, we are more than willing to do an investment without any guarantee, without anything. The only thing is we have a policy of creating the job. So 40% of your team needs to have our people, right? So if we are starting with 10 people, so 4 people will be from our country, 6 you can have your own team, right? And then you have to establish the office or whatever here in our country, because obviously if that business flourish, the profitability with the country, right? But they don't want any kind of a guarantee, they want any kind of a guarantee for the success, but they are willing to give all sort of facilitation in terms of, or support in terms of technology, in terms of talent, right? And in terms of the logistics. We need to explore the things outside the India. And you can only explore the thing outside the India when you will carry the global approach.
Yes, sir. I can say that most of the question is answered by you.
Okay.
So first, I would like to thank to Mr. Vinayak sir for this wonderful presentation and would like to appreciate his hard work that he made for us. And also, I would like to thank to our audience, all of you, graced today's event with your presence. Thank you, all of you.
Thank you, Swati, for the wonderful moderation, and thank you the whole team who have given this platform for the new talent. And the new talent has so much of potential. It's just that how they are orienting their energy. That's the important thing. And all the very best for the new talents also to you if you really want to become an entrepreneur. So thank you very much, and have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'm leaving. Thank you.